Hello and welcome to another episode of Two Guys and a Chainsaw. I'm Todd.
And I'm Craig.
Well, God, I just think we could keep this werewolf thing going forever because I'm actually having a ball finding all these different werewolf movies and doing it. And I've never been terribly obsessed with werewolves myself. And I think it was just kind of realizing the fact that there are a whole bunch of werewolf movies out there, many of which I've been wanting to see and haven't seen. This movie that we're doing now is 2002's Dog Soldiers. And my dad, who you know isn't a huge horror fan, actually he's not a horror fan really at all, but he saw this movie probably 15 years ago and reached out to me and was like, Todd, you need to see this movie. This movie's great. It's Dog Soldiers. It's a horror movie. I loved it. And I probably think about it once every 3 months. Every 3 months or so, I think, oh my God, my dad recommended a horror movie to me. I should probably see it. And I think because I'm not big into military movies, I was like, okay, Dog Soldiers. Okay, I'll get around to it. So it's been one of those movies that I've been wanting to see forever. The director, Neil Marshall, has gone on to do incredible things based on this, his very first feature-length film directorial debut. He had only done shorts before this. Since this, he's gone on to do so much stuff, including writing and directing one of, I think, our favorite horror movies, The Descent, right?
Yeah.
You're a big fan of that. And we did that on this podcast. He's got 13 producer credits to his name, 3 upcoming. He's written a number of things, like 11 things. He's directed 18, 2 more up and coming. He was a director on the TV series Hannibal. He directed an episode of Game of Thrones. He did a segment from Tales of Halloween that we absolutely loved. He's directed some stuff on Westworld. He was involved in 2019's Hellboy, which he has disassociated himself with because he said it was his worst professional experience of his life. He hated it. He doesn't want to have anything to do with it. And I don't know. I can't speak for everybody in the world, but I don't think the 2019 version of Hellboy was quite as well received as the earlier one. Anyway, my point is, this guy has gone on to do great things on the basis of this ultimately low-budget film. It's like a $2.1 million movie. Neil Marshall himself has said by 2001 standards, this was a low-budget movie, but by today's standards, with digital photography, and you can kind of do so much of it yourself, you could make a movie like this even cheaper. Still, it made a mark. It's still a big favorite. It's a cult favorite. It's still really well-loved in the UK and other places. Did not get a wide release in the US, sadly. It went straight to the Sci-Fi Channel, which he was very upset about, but he blames that on the producers. He says the producers were just a little shy about what they had and kind of took the first deal that was offered to them. But I have seen this movie pop up on numerous lists. A lot of people cite it as a movie you need to watch. And so I was super happy to finally get around to doing it. It seemed like you were just as enthusiastic to see it as I was. Or was this your first time seeing it? Did you seen it before?
Oh, no. No, this was my first time seeing it. And several things. One, your dad, not being a big fan of horror movies, has really good taste in horror movies. He also, together, the three of us did Train to Busan, which I still think is one of the best movies I've seen, period.
Period, right?
Yeah, it's such a great movie. And yes, there is a lot of hype around this movie. I told you when we were talking about doing it, we were going back and forth a little bit. You were kind of interested in sticking in that same year, like 83 or whatever year that all those werewolf movies came out. And I was like, I know, but I really want to do Dog Soldiers. Because I have known about this movie since it came out. Like, people have been talking about it since it came out.
Mm-hmm.
When I went to IMDb yesterday to look this up, I scanned down to the reviews, and the very first displayed review was like I don't know what their rating system is, but you read it and it was like, this is arguably the best werewolf movie ever. And so I was super stoked, and I was so confident in it that because you and I, based on scheduling that's boring to you listeners, had to watch 2 movies yesterday, I ended up needing to watch this last minute, and I'm like, Ellen, do you want to watch this werewolf movie with me? Like it's really popular, and people say it's like the greatest werewolf movie. And we watched it.
He was like, okay.
I don't know, man. Like, I'm really interested to hear what your thoughts were on it, because I was really surprised by my reaction to it, because I thought it was going to be great. And I thought we were going to sit here today and talk about how great it was.
Right.
I don't know.
You know, it has elements. There are things I really like about this movie. I would say the thing I like the most about this movie, there are two things I like the most about this movie. Number one, I like that it, maybe because we kind of recently came off of Predator, right? So we had this sort of monster in the jungle with a military aspect to it. I was getting, to a certain extent, in this movie, a bit of the Predator vibes.
It's very Predator. The werewolves have Predator vision, except it's in black and white.
Yeah.
Like the military element of it. I also wondered, you mentioned it, your dad is a military man. I wondered if that was part of the appeal.
I think he likes that kind of stuff, yeah. So, I mean, it had that element to it, which I like. So, I mean, it's a horror movie. It's an action movie. It's maybe more of an action movie than a horror movie, much like Predator, right? Like,
yes.
It's a horror movie because it's gross. It's got a lot of gore. It's got a supernatural element to it. Predator, even maybe not even supernatural technically, but sci-fi. But
right.
In any case, they're kind of the same thing. Like creatures that don't exist are coming in and f***ing with the military people who should be up for the task, but are being overwhelmed by this force, right? So, yeah, I thought that was cool. Like, you don't actually see a lot of that, maybe not enough of that. And so definitely in the werewolf genre, it feels like something a little unique. So I was happy to see, because also my stated goal, as I've said, I don't know, 1 or 2 episodes ago, was I wanted us to do a variety of werewolf movies that kind of covered a whole swath of subgenres. And so I thought this fit in perfectly. I don't know if there are any more military werewolf movies. This is the only one I know of. So I liked that bit of it. The other thing I really liked about it was the creature design. It was upright. It was very condescending werewolves. They were really high and they were big and they were frightening. It showed its low budget by, not giving you too much of the creatures. But unlike a lot of really low budget movies that we do, it wasn't scared to show us enough of the creatures. It was to a degree where it would get in there and it would show us the werewolves in flashes and things like that. But I never felt like they were trying to compensate for their low budget by hiding it excessively. Do you know what I mean?
That's true. No, I do know what you mean. And the werewolf reveal is gradual.
No, you're right. The werewolf reveal is gradual, and that's kind of a low budget thing, right? But like once they're out and they're fighting and they're doing their thing, like I never felt cheated. You watch a monster movie, you want to see a monster, and you want to see a lot of the monster. And I almost feel like your satisfaction with the monster movie relies on 2 things. Number 1, how much of the monster are you going to see flat out on the screen? And number 2, when you do see the monster, are you going to be laughing at it? Or are you going to be like, oh, that's really badass, that's really cool? And for this movie, it fulfilled the first. I saw a lot of the monster. The second, I wasn't laughing at it. Did I think it was super badass? Did I think they were the best werewolves we've seen so far? No. But I really respected the fact that they kept everything animatronic and real, and like they didn't go to CGI at all. At this time, when this movie came out, 2002, Jurassic Park had not been out too long. And, CGI was kind of in its infancy, and they were...
Well, it's a low budget. I mean, CGI gets expensive, I think.
It does, but they were explicitly worried that if they tried to rely too much on CGI, it would just look fake and people would be disappointed. And so they made a conscious decision against CGI, and you and I both respect and love that. So for that aspect of it, I love it too. That said, I can't wait to talk about the details of the plot, because there were bits of this movie that confused me. There were bits of this movie where I was like rolling my eyes like, oh my God, like do not expect me to buy this.
Oh boy. Let me respond to the werewolf design, and then we can talk about the lunacy that is this movie. I feel bad saying this, but I really didn't care for it, the design. And I think that in close up, I thought it looked great. Like anytime they were in close up on like the werewolf's like maw, like that looked fantastic and scary, and I liked it. But when it was the full werewolf, I don't even know. God, I didn't read the trivia. I am so unprepared. This is the most unprepared I've ever been. I don't know how they did it, but it looked like I was at a ballet about werewolves. Like it just looked like very fit people with like a shoulder headpiece on.
You really didn't read the trivia.
Oh, I didn't read anything.
So I've got to credit you because, ironically enough, if you read the trivia, you will find that Neil Marshall recruited dancers to play the werewolves, specifically ballet dancers, because, yeah, he wanted this like kind of like the motion and kind of like the grand. He felt that dancers could better portray the werewolves than just like big burly stunt guys. So there were literal ballet dancers in the werewolf costumes. They were on stilts, and the sets were smaller. Well, especially when they were shooting the werewolves, they built the sets just a little bit smaller so that they would have to hunch over more and they would appear to tower over everybody. So, yeah, you're not off the mark there.
And now that I know that's true and that's what he was going for, like thumbs up. I don't know.
Well, I don't think he was going for graceful ballet dancing werewolves, to be fair, but
there are just so many things. Like, I have so many questions. Like, as soon as Alan and I started watching this movie, I was getting on my phone to make sure that we were watching the right movie because this movie was made in 2002. And I was like, no, this is clearly a movie that was made in the 70s. My video quality was poor. I streamed it on Hulu. My video quality looked like it was something that was shot on film in the 70s.
Oh, yeah.
That movie that you hate about like the wild man in the woods. What is that movie?
Don't Go in the Woods, yeah.
Don't Go in the Woods. That's what it looked like.
Really? Oh, come on.
Yes.
No.
Oh my God, no. Like, seriously, there were lines in the film. Like, it looked like it was on film.
That's messed
and
up.
there were cigarette burns.
No.
Cigarette burns.
You streamed this on Amazon.
On Hulu.
On Hulu.
Yes. I don't know what print it came from, but I was really worried that I was watching the wrong movie, that I looked it up and I wasn't. And then ultimately, as I got into it, I literally turned to Alan and I said, this has to be a choice. It has to be. There's no other explanation for it. And it fit the movie. It feels like a movie that was made in the 70s. All those low shots up at trees and shit. We have seen that in other 70s movies. I have no idea. I don't know if Hulu just got a bad cut of it. I don't know.
I feel like what I watched had been cleaned up. However, it's also interesting that you say that because apparently when they went to go and do the Blu-ray release of this film, like to properly release it, this was a low budget film. It was shot it's shot in Scotland and Luxembourg and a bunch of places. It's an independent film. It was. And so Neil Marshall said that they didn't think they could release it because all the original stuff had been, basically they lost it all. Like nobody had it. Nobody was taking care of it. Big budget movies are shot at studios that care about their product and they keep it and they hold on to it and they preserve it. And this movie, they thought they had lost all of the original stuff. And Pathé happened to have 2 prints of it that he said by some miracle were sent to us. Pathé's in Italy. It's a studio and apparently, I don't know all the details, but anyway, they had 2 prints of it that they managed to send to them. And from those 2 prints of the film, they were able to salvage and release a Blu-ray. So maybe some of the film, well, clearly some of the film quality you're talking about, especially the cigarette burn bit, those only come from prints. Those don't come from the negatives. Those come from reels you need to change, right?
It happened twice. I had convinced myself the first time that I had hallucinated it. I thought, no, surely not. But then it happened again. I'm actually a little bit sad that you didn't see it like that because eventually, I felt like that was the vibe of the movie. It feels like it doesn't feel like a movie from 2002.
Yeah.
It almost feels kind of grindhousey.
Oh, no, that it does. No, I agree with you. And I think it's even more than just the film quality. I think Again, it's probably due to the low budget nature of it and what they had to do. They had to submit to the same tricks that Grindhouse films have to do to kind of.
Yeah, I don't want to suggest, based on my comments about the film, like the actual video quality, I don't want to suggest that it's shot poorly, because I don't think that it is at all. I think that it's shot really in a very smart way, but in a way that, again, seems more like what we would see. It at times reminded me of like Cannibal Holocaust, like handheld, close shots of people's faces, just kind of observational shooting about, like, especially with all those soldiers. We haven't even started talking about what the movie is about.
Werewolves and soldiers. We got that much across.
We know every dude gets the heebie-jeebies when it's time for a close shave down there, especially when using the wrong tools. That's precisely why Manscaped is my go-to for those delicate spots. Meet the star of the show, the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra. This 5th-generation trimmer features 2 interchangeable next-gen skin-safe blade heads, a standard one for taking a little off the top, and a new foil blade to go smooth wherever your heart desires. With dual LED spotlights, you'll achieve better visibility, making every trim more precise and hassle-free. This bad boy is waterproof. Shave in the shower, in the bath, in the ocean. I love this thing because it comes with a compact case. I take it with me everywhere I go. Trust me, this trimmer will be your crown jewel's best new buddy. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code CHAINSAW at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping with the code CHAINSAW at manscaped.com. Show your balls some love and feel free as a dove.
I swear to God, in the first 10 minutes, there's an interesting opening shot or scene, which we should probably talk about. But within the first 10 minutes, when we're introduced to this troop of soldiers, I looked at Alan and I said, oh, great. It's a bunch of soldiers that all look exactly the same.
Yeah.
Like, there's no way that I am ever going to know who is who. And I never did. Ever.
No.
Like, there's one guy named Cooper who's like the main guy. But then the rest of them were like, guts out guy.
Spoon. There's a guy named Spoon.
Yeah, but I couldn't tell you who that was.
Yeah, I know.
I have no idea.
Yeah. No, that would be one criticism of the film, but for an action film, it doesn't tend to matter.
It doesn't matter.
All these characters.
It is so much like Predator. But you were right. It is so much like Predator. It's just a different antagonist. But in Predator, all of those guys were distinct. Like, they had distinct looks. They had distinct personalities.
True.
In this movie, it's like 6 guys and they all look exactly the same.
Yeah.
Exactly the same.
It's true. But you know what? I don't think we're obligated really to be able to like come do character names and things like that, because ultimately it really doesn't matter. Like, it's just going to be a bunch of people fighting werewolves. There isn't a lot of real drama between the people. They argue and they fight and they like say things to each other and stuff like that, or they allude to things that happened in the past or some beefs or whatnot. But like, ultimately, none of it really matters to the story, and it's not real heavy. Honestly, at some point, it becomes Night of the Living Dead, where they're just stuck in a house that's being besieged and they need to fend these guys off. And this movie is so chock full of references to other movies that
Is it?
Oh God, yeah.
Oh, I didn't read the trivia.
What?
Okay, good. Tell me. I'm excited.
There's a lot of them. I mean, there's so many. I think as we go through the plot, as we do, we'll get to them. But like, there's Evil Dead vibes. There's, like I said, Night of the Living Dead vibes. There's character names. Like, one of them is called Henry G. Wells or something. I mean, there's just so many like little nods. Actually, there's so many in here that you could just tell the director got super excited, and there's shit that's so esoteric that you would never piece it together unless you watch this movie 100 times or you read the trivia on IMDb. Like, that is how chock full of references to other films it is.
Well, I'm disappointed that I failed in my duty to educate myself this time around, because honestly, like, I feel like there's not a whole lot to talk about. The plot is so simple.
It is super simple. Dude, I'm just while we're talking about it, literally, when Megan cuts her hand on the window, you remember that moment?
Yes.
There is a very, very small segment of music from The Company of Wolves. That is how minutely referential like elements of this movie are to other movies.
That's so funny because that's one of the only moments that I was like, oh, that's important. Like they make a big deal out of it. Like she cuts her head and then she looks at it like,
I know.
Like, I'm like, oh, is she a werewolf now?
You're like, put a pin in this, right?
Right. Megan. Oh God. Yes, please, you do it. Because it is so simple. Like, I feel like you can do it in like.
It's okay. Because we're not talking about just the plot, but like it starts out with these two guys. God, I wish I could remember their names, but I can't. Ryan is the name of the superior. He's played by
and Cooper. Ryan and Cooper. Is the only two names you need to know. No, excuse me. Ryan, Cooper, and Megan, the only girl. Those are the three names that keep track of those. Ryan, Cooper, and Megan.
Liam Cunningham plays Ryan, and you will recognize him, particularly if you're a Game of Thrones fan. He was Davos Seaworth in Game of Thrones. He's been in 114 movies. Like I've never watched Game of Thrones, and I instantly recognized this guy. So he's a very, very prolific actor on television, on movies, pretty much equally. I feel like Cooper was familiar to me too, but I couldn't immediately call up how or why. But anyway, it does a little bit of a fake out where they're military guys in the woods and there's some shit going on and they're doing some fighting. And then I don't remember exactly how it all goes down, but at some point there's a dog involved. What is it? He gets attacked by a dog or something?
There's nothing. No, nothing. That dog didn't do anything.
Really?
It was just like a test of will or something like.
Now shoot the dog.
Yeah, shoot the dog.
He thinks I'm pulling his leg. Do I look like a sodding comedian? Shit, why?
No, stop! Still won't do it.
You don't have a choice. Finish the job. Shoot the dog.
Shoot it! No, stop!
And he's like, well, if you don't, then I can't trust you to do things you may need to do. And he's like, no, I'll do whatever to protect the squad or whatever, but I'm not going to shoot this dog unprovoked. He's like, well, then
I can kill a dog. Don't get me wrong. I'm just not going to kill this dog for this reason. And he's like, well, you're out.
For no reason.
Yeah.
Right. And then Ryan shoots the dog. For no reason. This dog that's just like, sitting there obediently. Asshole.
I find this a little confusing because then when we come back, we find out that Cooper is still in the military. So I was like, thought he got kicked out.
The first 10 minutes of the movie. No, he didn't get kicked out. He just didn't make that special squad.
Yes.
But the first 10 minutes of this movie are wild because it's like you get these screen things telling you where we are, and the first one's like Scotland, and these people are camping and they're getting busy and the woman gets killed, and then it says 2 hours earlier in Wales, and then we see that scene where he's supposed to shoot the dog or whatever, and then it says 4 weeks later in the Highlands of Scotland.
Yes.
Why are we jumping around in time like this?
You're right. I forgot about the campers out in the woods getting killed because at first I thought, is this movie going to be a horror comedy? Because what happens is they're getting ready to make out and he starts to unzip her zipper, and then the zipper sound keeps going. And they look up and they realize that their tent is being unzipped. I actually thought, I laughed out loud at that. I thought that was pretty clever. It was the cutest thing I've seen in a horror movie.
This movie, that was funny. I did enjoy that. But this movie confused me. I kept looking at Alan like this. I think that was supposed to be funny.
Right, yeah.
Like, I kept thinking, I think that was comedy. But it didn't make me laugh.
Right.
Is it just because it's like, is it British comedy that I don't get?
I have to, you know what?
know.
So this is hilarious. I was out shooting today when I got a message from you, and I got very concerned that we were going to be watching the wrong movie today. We had 2 movies to watch, and I hadn't watched the first one. I had given myself enough time to watch it, but thinking that I was going to have to watch 2 movies today, I was like, I'm going to need to use all of my free time, my lunch break, and then, maybe even on my trip home to watch this movie. And thankfully, my taxi ride home was like almost an hour and a half. So I pulled out the laptop, and me and a friend of mine who happens to be Irish, which is, it's Scottish adjacent, was sitting next to me, and we were watching this movie together. And I was like, oh, this is cool because this is kind of happening near and around in the UK, around his home. So he's going to enjoy this too. And we're watching it, but it was a little noisy in the car, and the sound wasn't, was up as high as we could get it. And because I was in a hurry, I cranked it up to watch it like 1.25, speed or whatever.
Okay.
And eventually he turns to me, he's like, we need to slow this down, or we need to put some headphones in or something, because I can't understand what the hell they're saying. And I was like, thankfully, you're not the only one.
No, I couldn't understand what they were saying either at regular speed.
There's so much slang and so much shit going on.
Yeah.
That was a bit of an adjustment. Yeah. And I've purposely pushed myself to watch UK films where people are just speaking in like Cockney accents and Irish brogue and all kinds of stuff. And even my Irish friend was like, I'm not even sure what this means. I'm not even sure what this means. I've never heard that before. The guy grew up in the UK, right? And he's a linguistics guy of all things.
Oh,
so
wow.
So we ended up finding a place to stream it where we could actually put subtitles up, and that helped us tremendously.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay, so like there's this team out, and it's supposed to just be like a training thing, right? Like they're like on a training mission.
Yeah, it's just drop you in the middle of the jungle somewhere, not jungle, but wherever it is in Scotland.
Forest, yeah.
Forest, and you're just supposed to go through this training mission. They're all issued blanks, they've all got guns with little yellow things on the end, so like they all know that it's just all fake. But then as they go through the woods, they come across they're sitting around a campfire.
Yes.
Oh my God.
I was not going to let you pass that part.
They're sitting around a campfire and they're telling stories. And one of them's telling stories from Iraq and how, like a buddy of his, when they found him, he was in like 15 different pieces. And then
in my notes is campfire tale about Eddie's ass tattoo.
Me and Eddie, we went and had a few drinks. We had a lot of drinks. And we went down to the tattoo parlour and I got a desert rat done. And Eddie, being Eddie, wanted something with a bit more meaning. And being a bit of a believer, he said that his soul still belonged to God, but his flesh was way beyond redemption, and it was up to Satan to save his skin. So he got this great laughing devil tattooed right on his arse. Anyway, about 6 days later, we were making a regular sweep along the Iraqi border, and Eddie triggered an anti-tank mine. Blinding lightning flash and a fucking deafening crack, and by the time we picked ourselves up off the deck, Eddie was gone. Just bits and pieces of him. It's all that remained. But the thing that really freaked us out that day was when Left-Hand Charlie found a bit of Eddie with a tattoo on. I mean, everything else was burnt to a crisp, covered in claret, all mushed up, pulped up. Not this bit. This bit was perfect. And there's old Nick chortling his fucking arsehole off at us. So you could say that Eddie was right. That Satan did indeed save his skin, just not all of it.
That was a great monologue.
So it was interesting, and it was cute, and it's very military, and I was willing to go along with it because we're still only like 15 minutes into this movie that we know is going to have some soldiers in it. It's very typical. Again, Predator-esque, whatever. And then suddenly a dead cow drops from a height into their campfire. And they're like, what the hell? And one dude's like, starts shooting at it. And he's like, what are you shooting at it for? It's blanks, like, yada, yada, yada. And then they stop and they're like, oh my God, this cow, like it's clearly been like mutilated and yada, yada, yada. All right. Well, I guess for the night we need to like put up some positions and like have some, I'm thinking, what? A dead cow just dropped into your camp and you don't think this is
from the sky? Like, what? Like, I just felt like, yeah, that guy like reacts and shoots his gun or whatever, but then they're like, well, that was weird. Like, let's go to sleep, I guess.
Just put up a patrol and watch,
And then they get up in the morning and they go looking around and they kind of go off track, I feel like they're investigating this whole cow thing. I don't know. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
We do know, however, that guy that we had seen earlier, Ryan, Captain Ryan, is following them and communicating with somebody else. And he's like, tell them that the flock is approaching the fold. Like, what?
But it's intrigue.
But we know that it's a werewolf movie. But then that guy gets attacked by a werewolf, and then this group of military men that we've gotten accustomed to, investigating the cow thing, they come across a military camp that has just been decimated. Like, you don't even see any bodies or anything. It's just blood and guts everywhere.
Yeah, the whole point is there are no bodies. Yeah,
you're right. But Ryan, Captain Ryan, the one who's been following them, is there, and he's like slashed open, but he's okay. And he keeps saying, there was only supposed to be one of them. I really didn't understand what was happening in this movie most of the time. I swear to God, my notes are short, and they're like, I'm bored. I don't know what's happening. Like, that's literally in my notes.
I mean, to be fair, it's just setting up mystery. I was okay with not knowing exactly what happened because I figured it would be explained later. But in retrospect, I'm still a little confused. But anyway, yeah, you're right. They come across Ryan. He's been slashed. He's asking them for help. He leaps out at them, almost gets himself killed because he leaps out at them. They aim their guns at him. They find him. They patch him up, and they start to drag him along. And as they're dragging him along, they get beset by creatures, and it's pretty clear.
Werewolves.
Yeah, it's clear as day.
It's clear as day because it is day.
It is day, yeah.
What is happening?
Werewolves of full size, no question, are coming at them, and they're shooting at them, and they're dragging this guy along, and they're trying to get somewhere. And what happens is they sort of stumble down a hill onto a road right in front of a Jeep that happens to be driving by. Right, it happens to be driving by at that moment.
Why are the werewolves werewolves during the day when they very clearly later talk about how they're only werewolves at night? Like, somebody says later, we just have to wait until morning. This first werewolf attack on the military crew happens in broad daylight.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at, God, I'm just going to keep saying it, but I did. Is this supposed to be night? Because it was broad daylight.
Is it a day for night situation? Yeah, no, it didn't seem to be. No. It was broad daylight.
I don't understand.
But it's twilight. It's coming up tonight anyway. Maybe, the moon is full, but the sun hasn't gone down yet.
2 o'clock in the afternoon. Whatever. All right, fine. It's night.
It's fine. They stumble in front of this Jeep. I'll go with it. I'll continue to go with it, even though it's raising questions.
Whatever. Wait, no, we can't go there yet. Because first, one of the guys whose names I don't know gets attacked by the werewolf, and his abdomen gets completely sliced open, and his guts are hanging out.
Yeah, that happened.
His guts are hanging out. And another guy comes up and is like, just put them back in. And he's like, no, they won't fit. And the other guy's like, oh, they'll fit. And they just squish his guts back inside him and like pull his pants up, and he's fine.
Are we sure?
He can get
I thought
he can get up and run. He gets up and runs.
No, this is the guy.
No.
This isn't the guy they rescued, right? I thought there was a dude who got killed and they ended up having to leave behind and they were distressed about. And that was the guy.
There was. One guy died, but that wasn't the guy whose guts fell out.
Oh.
That guy whose guts fell out is around for most of the rest of the movie. They put him in that bed and there's a whole scene where they sew him up.
Because he's the captain. Yeah, that's right. But I feel like there's an explanation.
His guts were out.
I know, but I feel like there's an explanation for that. Because
no, I think he became a werewolf because of that attack.
Yes.
So are you suggesting that like the initial swipe of the werewolf claw like makes you immune to injury?
Yeah.
If that's okay, all right, okay.
That's werewolf lore, right? You get attacked by a werewolf, you get scratched by a werewolf, you can become a werewolf, and werewolves have these regenerative qualities. At least that's American Werewolf in London. That's at least one other movie we've seen. That was the Howling, right? Like, so, yeah, I mean, I'm willing to go along with that, but it is pretty shocking in the moment that they stuff his guts back into his
Guts are out.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. Okay. And so then they meet Megan. They just fall in front of her car.
Get in the car.
And she's like, "Oh my God, thank God I found you." What are you talking about?
Where did she come from? At first I thought she was also military. She's like, get in the Jeep and like whatever, and then she drives them off. And in the Jeep they're talking about, oh my God, that was f***ed up. And she's like, okay, well, like the closest place nearby is this farmhouse down the road. And so
And a werewolf attacks their car. It's not like it's not like there's any mystery as to what they're dealing with now, even though they kind of continue to pretend like they're not sure what's happening. And at one point, somebody, maybe it's Megan, is like, "Is it wolves?" And Megan's like, "Well, it's like kind of not entirely wolf, but a little bit man." And I shit you, I was sitting there thinking, isn't there a word for that? Like, it's fucking werewolves. Are you kidding me? You have seen them. They're 8 feet tall. They're bipedal. They're obviously werewolves.
Oh,
I need to calm down.
yeah, it's okay. No, it's funny because I was also turning to my friend Thomas multiple times during this being like, shouldn't they understand by now? like, didn't they sort of sort this out? They've been fighting these wolves.
Seen them.
They've been fighting these wolves out there. These wolves attacked their car. An arm came down through the roof of this Jeep. They stabbed it multiple times. One guy was holding it while the other dude was stabbing it with the knife. They get to this farmhouse. They go inside. There's nobody there. It's so Goldilocks and the Three Bears that some guy even makes a reference. It's so funny.
Odd. I know. I don't understand it.
That's part of the charm, though. The Goldilocks bit is...
Why did the werewolf family leave on the stove? Why? Were they just like, were they being hospitable? Like they wanted their prey to be well fed?
They go...
What?
They go there and there is, you know, it's one of those deals where like, oh, there's nobody here, but there's a boiling kettle on the stove, which is a mystery. And then a guy looks and they're like, well, we're going to eat because we're hungry. And I was like thinking, don't eat that f***ing shit. Like, do not eat mystery things from a place you don't know.
No.
And one guy even asked another dude, what is it? And he's like, I don't know. It seems like pork. And I was like, it's a human being. Like, it was very clear to me. Like, you guys.
I don't even know. Yeah, I don't even know if anything came of that. I was just like,
no,
it makes no sense. Like, why would these people flee? It's also been established that the people who are from here know that there are werewolves.
Yes, this is the other thing.
And lots of people, like people go missing from this place all the time.
This woman, she claims, and I'm still confused about this, but as they sit there, Megan claims that she is a zoologist.
She's a zoologist. I about shit my pants when she said, I'm a zoologist. I was like, you are fucking kidding me. That is, oh my God. And Alan, who hated this movie and was so angry that I made him watch it. I mean, like, he tolerated it, but like, it was obvious that he hated it. When she said, I'm a zoologist, we both just died laughing. Oh God, it's so funny and stupid.
So she's a zoologist, and she says, I'm a zoologist, and I came out here specifically to study these creatures, and I know how to kill them. Every time, to the point of comedy, which I thought this cannot be an accident, like this has to be a joke. Every time to the point of comedy, she starts to verge on information that will be helpful to them. They interrupt her and say, we don't care about that.
Yeah.
Do you have a name, soldier?
Cooper. Gonna need your help here, miss.
My name is Megan. And I know how to kill...
Shit, sorry, you're looking like a slave. Look,
and you get some super glue and some whiskey on it.
I'll see what I can do.
And like they just cut her off when she's about to give the most crucial information.
At one point, I turned to Thomas and I said, mark my words, there will be a scene later in this movie where this woman is like, the only way to stop them is... It didn't come, but I was ready for it because that was the tenor of everything. Anytime anyone in this movie can possibly share important information, they either don't or nobody else gives a shit or somebody interrupts them. This guy who they found turns out to be shady because he's like, obviously we know he knows something. He's saying stuff about, there was only supposed to be one of them. He's the only surviving member. Yet they do not press him for information, even though he says shady things. And so they get very suspicious of him. They're like, what's your deal? Especially because this guy's got a pass with him. So it's like, it's like a personal thing as well, right? Because Ryan was the guy who didn't let Cooper join the special forces. So Cooper's immediately attacking him. And he's like, let me see your wounds. And Ryan's like, I would really appreciate it if you didn't. And he's like, well, it doesn't matter because I'm going to see your wounds anyway. And they lift up his shirt, and of course his wounds are healed. I'm sorry, huge red flag. What do they do?
Duh.
Oh, I can't trust you. We're going to tie you to a chair. And then they walk away. This guy, why aren't you pumping him for information? And why, when this girl is saying, I know how to kill them, you're not like, all right, let's pull up a chair. You tell us, as your zoologist, person who studied these creatures, everything you know. Instead, they're still not even quite sure if this is a werewolf. Well, I don't know if I buy that. I don't know, like, whatever. This was hard for me to swallow.
Yeah, but, okay, the movie is far too long. And there are so many times in my notes where I just am like, so much talking, and I didn't care. Like, they were just talking forever. I'm like, I don't care. But at some point, Ryan straight up tells them that the military knew there were werewolves, and they were sending this group of guys in
Trainees
as like bait because they wanted to, I guess, capture the werewolves and use them as a military.
Capture one at least, yeah.
And use it as weaponry. All right. And then he starts to turn into a werewolf. And I think he does. He turns into like a great big huge one. And there's fighting. There's always fighting. There's gunplay and fighting all the time, but nothing really comes of it. And then there's always talking. And then at some point, Megan, I don't know. At some points in the movie, like, they have cars, but then every time they have cars, the werewolves disable them. And then at one point, Megan's like, I forgot to tell you, there's a car in the garage. You should go get it. And then she's like, I think all the werewolves are probably hiding in that shed. We should blow it up. This plot point has no purpose.
I have to be honest with you. At this point, Megan is saying two different things. On the one hand, she is trying to convince them, we just need to wait till morning. We just need to wait a couple hours. We need to hold out, and then everything's going to be fine again because it'll be morning and they only hunt at night. But then later, they concoct this plan like they need to get to a car and try to get out. I'm like, why? You guys have successfully defended your little fortress here. There are no werewolves right now. You seem to have all the ammo in the world and you're not concerned about it. Like, hold down. She's literally been telling them, we just need to wait an hour or two. And then 2 scenes later, she's like, I think we should go to the shed and get the car. Why?
And blow up the shed.
Oh, we should go out into where the werewolves are. Somebody needs to go out into the forest where the werewolves are, act as bait.
That is the dumbest plan.
So that another person can, while they're distracted, go out into where the werewolves are to go to the shed to get the car, to back a car up to the front so they can all get into this car so that they can drive out into where the werewolves are. I don't get it.
No, it's dumb. It's dumb. And this whole plan, like they get the car, but then the guy who got the car gets killed because there's a werewolf hiding in the back of it. And then Megan's like, oh, I bet they're all hiding in that shed. We should blow it up. So they do. And then as soon as they do, she's like, just kidding. Like just at that point, somehow they have a revelation. Like there has been throughout this entire time a family portrait of the family that lives in this cabin, but they only just realized in this moment, this family's probably the werewolves. And Megan's like, yeah, they are. And so am I.
You'd tell me you'd figured that out like way long ago, because
I knew Megan was shady, but the whole plot was so convoluted. I'm like, I don't know.
Well, here's what I don't understand.
Knows?
At one point,
I thought they all could be werewolves for all I knew.
At one point, Megan seems to be telling the truth, because there's like a moment of truth or whatever when she's talking to Cooper and a couple people are dead and the werewolves are descending on the cabin. I think this is after the car was backed up, but the guy's killed. And by the way, I don't understand why they didn't still go for the car. I mean, this guy gave his life to bring them the car. He did end up killing the werewolf because they opened the back door of the car and they saw all this death. They shot the werewolf and whatever. Like, why didn't they then push the blood and the body aside and get in the car? Like, I don't think the werewolf disabled it. I don't know why they didn't just follow through with their plan anyway. They just retreated back into the house. Anyway, Megan tells Cooper, I believe it is, when you came up in the woods, I thought you were the one who could save me from this hell and this madness, but I realize now you can't. I had already kind of sorted out that she was a werewolf because there were some weird scenes of her sitting down and playing at the piano, you know, in the house, some sheet music that she obviously knew before. And then when she cut herself on the window, she was kind of looking at it funny. And then her hand was kind of fine later and shit. So I felt like it was projected that she was a werewolf. What I don't understand is what was her motivation through this entire thing?
When I found you out there tonight, I truly believed you were the best chance I had of getting out. But now we have no chance. There is no out. There never was.
She like literally screams out, "You think I wanted to be a part of this effed up family?" I'm like, well, then you were driving away. Why don't you just leave?
Yeah.
I mean, if they're only a threat at night when there's a full moon, you can go whenever you want. You said you live in a farmhouse just a little way down the road. Like, it doesn't seem like there's anything keeping you here. How are these people your salvation? Just none of that made sense. I don't know. Maybe someone's going to listen to this and they're going to explain to me something I missed.
Some people are going to be mad because people love this movie.
You know what? To be honest with you, I didn't hate this movie. I actually enjoyed watching it as much as I thought it was puzzling. It was silly. I liked the action. I really did. I didn't feel for any of the characters, but I liked it like I like any action movie. Like I want to watch Predator or Commando or something like that. Like, I thought there was great action in here, and I thought it was bloody and it was gory and it was kind of fun. I liked the werewolves. I liked seeing all that. I just didn't think the story made any sense. And I agree with you. It was 100% convoluted to the point of lunacy. It didn't make any sense to me. It didn't make any sense.
I mean, I feel like we didn't even talk about how it ends, but that goes to show how much I cared. And I think that part of it was the whole time I was watching it, I was feeling apologetic because I knew Alan wouldn't like it. But I thought that based on public response to it, I'm like, well, it won't be terrible. Like it'll be a decent movie. And I knew that he was just miserable watching it. And I felt apologetic and I understood why. At one point I was like, we can turn it off. We can watch something else. And he's like, no, we can finish it. But after it's over, you need to leave me alone.
That's hard.
So I did. We finished it. Then I went in another room and. But I mean, how does it end? Who cares? I mean, there's werewolves, and then Cooper like kills them, and he and the good boy doggo, who we haven't talked about at all. When they first arrive at that cabin, somebody hears some scratching behind a cupboard door, and they open it out, and like an Australian Shepherd comes out, like a sweet farm dog. And we had already seen that one German Shepherd get shot in the head. And when that Australian Shepherd came out, I looked at Alan and I said, that dog will be fine. I guarantee it. I knew because they had already set up that Cooper was like he morally objected to killing a dog. And I'm like, oh, this good doggo, he's going to be fine.
I actually thought because of that setup, he would face a situation in the future where he would be forced to shoot the dog. So I was kind of impressed I was surprised that it lived, honestly.
It crossed my mind that maybe the dog would also be a werewolf. But he wasn't. And in the end, he helped and he survived.
So what? Like, this is the family dog that on the one hand was barking at the werewolves sometimes, but on the other hand, the werewolves had to lock up in the closet?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, they just lock him up in the closet. That's fine. I mean, that's what you would do. I mean, you're going to turn into a werewolf. So you got to make sure your dog is safe if you're going to turn into a werewolf. I get it.
Yeah.
I would do that.
I love the point, like, there's some interesting physics involved, and, where there's a point where it's basically the end of the movie. Cooper ends up blowing up the whole house with this little trap or whatever. He's in the basement. The house blows up, but I guess an explosion's like a tornado, right? As long as everything above ground explodes, everything underground is okay. I was just like, why is
that's? Oh, Todd, it's so funny. We're going to talk about that more because the same thing happens in the other movie that we watched for today.
True.
Anyway, carry on.
Yeah, so anyway, I think we pretty much did it, right? Like, she turns into a werewolf, and he shoots her in the head real fast. Or somebody does. I can't remember who does.
Well, right. I don't know. And then you're right. The whole house blows up, but because they were in a basement, they're okay. But it turns out that one of the werewolves is still down there. I think it's the captain, Ryan. I think it's supposed to be him. And he and the main guy fight. And somehow, I have no idea how all of this is connected, but somehow Cooper has that silver letter opener from the campers from the first story.
Oh, okay.
And he kills them.
I think I missed that because when the werewolf breaks in through the floor and comes down and starts fighting Cooper, a whole bunch of stuff falls down with him. And then there's a moment where Cooper sees that letter opener and it's like an aha moment, right? And I was like, am I supposed to recognize that? There's a point made earlier in the movie where they're going through the drawers looking for things, and somebody even says, God, this whole family doesn't have a silver thing in the house, which is a big giveaway. But also, I was thinking, yeah, I mean, of course, okay, so they're werewolves, yada, yada, yada. I thought that from the moment they went into the house. But then I was like, so where did that letter opener come from? And I guess I missed it earlier. Where it was in the first camp? What?
Yeah, in the opening scene with the campers, the girl gave it to the guy as a gift.
What?
And yes, and she said something. He's like, I don't know. I feel like he said something that, like, I hope I don't lose it. And she's like, yeah, you better not. It's pure silver.
But the point is, those two characters had nothing to do with anybody who came later. So how would...
Except for they were in that area, because when the soldiers talk about, Cooper's like, yeah, this area is notorious. People go missing all the time. Just a week ago, a couple of campers went missing. So I guess that we are supposed to believe that these werewolves not only kill, but also loot.
Yeah. I get that. And so that's fine. So it ended up down in the basement somehow. But how does Cooper look down at this metal thing that fell down, instantly deduce that it's silver? He would have no idea, right? He doesn't have any association with these people. They're not part of his backstory. And then decide, oh, that's the thing. And so and stab him with it. I didn't get that either.
It doesn't make any sense. And also, it's not like he kills the werewolf with the letter opener, but it's just like if the wolf is injured with silver, it makes them more susceptible to injury. And so once he stabs the werewolf, like, I don't know, I feel like maybe it was late at night. I don't remember at this point, but it's almost like you saw like a rippling effect through the werewolf, and then he shot it in the head.
Yeah.
And that killed it.
I think you're right about that. Now, I kind of had to have that explained to me by you just now, but also that brings up the other thing that was going through my mind through this entire movie was like, they shoot the hell out of these werewolves. They are constantly
with machine guns
shooting at these guys with machine guns at point blank range. There's one point where a werewolf bursts through a window, and no less than 4 guys 6 feet away from him are blasting machine gun rounds into him. It does nothing. It does not hold them back. I mean, it kind of they fall back a little bit, but they keep coming. Are these guys that stupid? You have been shooting at these werewolves this entire movie, and it's done nothing to harm them. Why are you not changing tact? Why have you not thought back to that moment where this woman told you, I know how to kill them, and thought there must be a way, right? Like, stop trying to shoot them. Start trying to figure out how to kill them. Maybe even just turn and ask her, hey, you remember back when we interrupted you? Like, how do you kill them? Also, why would she volunteer this information if she's part of this werewolf family? Like, I just don't get it. I don't.
No, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense.
Oh,
now,
why is she so coy?
Right.
What? Maybe she wants her family. I'm sorry. Maybe she says later, you think I like being part of this effed up family? Okay, I get it. So you're turning against your family. All right. Why were you so coy and quiet about everything? Why didn't you just say, hey guys, guess what? I'm a zoologist. This is part of my family. I'm part werewolf. And this is how you kill them. Now that I got you on my side, we can do this.
No, it doesn't make any sense. And it is frustrating. And I want those of you out there, because I know you're out there.
Yeah.
I want you to comment and what are we missing? Are we overthinking it? Maybe we're overthinking it. I don't know.
I think, you know what we probably sound like? We probably sound like the guys who are picking apart an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. Like, oh, he jumped out of the shed and 15 people shot machine guns at him and he mowed them down and he was fine. And then everyone's like, who cares? Like, that's what I come to watch. I want to see an action movie. Maybe that's how everybody feels about this movie. Because I'm serious. I really enjoyed the action bit. I really did. I like that.
There's so much talking. Like, God, like if it had cut out all of those long talking scenes, I mean, there were parts that I liked. I liked when the werewolves were running through the forest in silhouette.
That was awesome.
It reminded me a lot of a movie that I think you already, In the Company of Wolves, was that the Angela Lansbury one? It reminded me of that. I liked like a spooky forest with, interesting imagery. I enjoyed that. I really did like the werewolves in close up. With seeing them in full again, like, it's not like they didn't look good, and it's a unique look, and I appreciate that, but it just looked like really buff guys, but lean, like dancers, as they were.
Like a wolf
like
would be, though.
Tall,
I dig that too.
tall.
I mean,
I get it.
A dog, a dog can be strong and muscular, but lean. Like, I thought that was fine.
Yeah, but it looked mostly human. It looked like they were wearing like a dog head costume. I'm not going to continue to criticize it because I don't want to, because I don't think it's a bad movie and I don't think that people shouldn't watch it. I've wanted.
You've been primed.
Yeah, I've wanted to see this movie for the last 20 years, and
I wanted to love it more too. I 100% feel you. No. I'd been primed that this was like an insanely great movie, an underappreciated independent film gem. And still, it's a well-made movie. It's got a lot of skill behind it.
It's well acted. It's well shot.
It is. It just didn't make a lot of sense. And I think that was so distracting that it was kind of disappointing. Because why? Why does it have to be so convoluted? You could have made an awesome action-based werewolf movie that would have been nothing more than, oh shit, they're werewolves. Let's retreat to this house and fight them away. And it would have played better for me, I think.
Me too. I'm feeling dejected. Like, oh boy, like I hate that I'm saying negative things about this movie. But whatever.
Tell us.
It was fine. It was fine. I would not steer anybody away from it. In fact, I would steer people towards it say, because I would want to say, like, because I want to see what you think. I think I'm wrong. I think I'm missing
I feel like I'm
something.
missing things too.
Yeah. So y'all should watch it and either validate or invalidate us. Because, I mean, the whole point of doing a podcast is for like validation, right? Oh man.
Invalidation, yeah, is okay too. As long as it's not mean-spirited, we're fine with that. All right, well, again, reach out to us. Let us know what you think. We really want to hear from you. And the place you can do that is on chainsawhorror.com, or you can just Google Two Guys in a Chainsaw Podcast. You can find us all over the internet. Find us on our places where our podcast is hosted. Leave us a review. Send us a message. You can even send us a voice message through a link on our website, and we love hearing those. Find us on our social media through the same channel. Just let us know what you think. We're going to continue with werewolf movies. We're on a roll. Until next time, I'm Todd.
And I'm Craig.
With Two Guys and a Chainsaw.